I can be very socially awkward but I'm also self-aware. There are people that are not self-aware. And those, like, if that was my kid, I would pull them aside. And I mean, I have, with my daughter, and like, you can't shut people down by just saying, I don't want to do that, and move on.
Right.
Like, you talk to them about stuff like that. But it's harder as an adult. And we all have friends where it's not my job. It's not my job, and it's not like my stewardship. It's not my right to like pull them aside and be like, did you know you're socially awkward?
Yeah, that's just
Can
not
I help you with your skills? Like, no, you can't.
Life gets easier if we figure it out together. Welcome to The Lisa Show.
On The Lisa Show, we've changed the way that we do things. We've changed the format. But one thing that hasn't changed is Carrie Ann Rhodes. She has been
I am eternal.
a great friend of the show. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to use you for a little experiment, Carrie Ann, if you will.
All right.
I think this is an interesting part of being an adult, which is, making and keeping friends when you're an adult is something that we don't really talk about in terms of how to do it, like a skill to practice.
Yeah.
We just kind of talk about it of, oh yeah, isn't it hard? Isn't it weird?
Or isn't it hard to make friends as an adult? But
yeah, or what role are they supposed to play in your life when you get a little bit older, or when you go through something hard, or when you don't have time and everyone's on a different sort of path. Like I might be going through a really difficult time and somebody else isn't. And one person is super busy establishing a new career or with kids or something. Mm-hmm. And another person has a little bit more leisure time and your marital status.
We talk to our kids about this. Like we're so focused and like, are you doing well socially? And you don't feel like you have friends? Well, this is how you do it. And we talk about that when you're younger.
Yeah, but do we talk about that
No.
together as friends and as adults? Not really. We might read some articles about it or I don't know,
a BuzzFeed.
I'll
read a BuzzFeed list about it.
So I thought this would be a great experiment because I think I don't know anyone who is perfect at this, right? It's because everybody's different. And so because you're interacting with other people as friends, it's different. And the idea that I'm really fascinated with right now is that you may be quote unquote friends with somebody for a long time, but it might be on a superficial level, right? And you might just think, yeah, sure, I know them. And then somebody will say, hey, did you hear about that one time when they went to Spain and this happened? And you'll be like, wait, what? And it's like you don't even know. You feel like you don't even know them. Or, oh, yeah, I knew them. They used to, sing karaoke with me. And and you'll think, no, there's no way. That's not who I
do not know
right?
that person.
I love how we all want to be a little bit mysterious, right? A little bit layered and nuanced, right? Like, you don't know everything about me. I'm complex.
I'm an onion. You haven't even begun to peel back the layers.
But really, we crave connection. And we really crave people knowing and seeing us for who we are and accepting it. And we can offer that to others. So in an attempt to sort of model this, I thought it would be interesting to actually get to know you better or on a deeper level than we know you on The Lisa Show. So,
okay.
We've had you come on and talk about interior design. We've had you talk about traveling with kids. We've had you talk about a little bit about your life and sort of the events, but really in an effort to get to know you deeper. And we can all do this with our friends if we're craving a deeper connection. Mm-hmm. Who is Carrie Ann Rhodes? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I just want to start. There are so many different like quizzes and questions that you can ask people to get to know them. And I think that
personality tests.
Yeah, personality tests.
Aren't there some personality tests that you could ask someone, oh, what are you? And this and that, then you kind of like unlock a new level.
Yes.
Like, oh,
now
okay,
I'm hyper aware
about you
as an extrovert that for whatever reason I'm attracted to introverts.
I'm an introvert that's attracted to extroverts. We need each other.
We need each other. And so I'm always conscious of like, don't ask too many questions. Don't be too personal. Don't get in their face too much. Don't be too much. Turn it down a little bit. That's the internal dialogue I have. And yet when people just let me be me, I feel the most comfortable.
Right.
But in talking to my other extrovert friends, they were like, yeah, I don't really know, like, how much to push it. And then my introverted friends will be like, I'm better one-on-one. I need to ease in on it. Hold the phone a little bit.
Nothing is more frustrating to me, though, is someone who won't answer my questions or open up.
Yes.
My favorite, and this is where even as an introvert, I have to hold back. If I meet someone like at a party or if I'm getting to know someone, I want to sit down and like intensely look into their eyes and just ask them everything.
I know, me
like,
too.
What
Is that
was
weird?
this? How did this happen?
Yeah.
Why?
Why are you like this?
Why are you like this?
Do you want to know why I'm like this?
I'll tell you. No, so it's I love to do that to other people.
I kind of want to give everybody permission to do that. And I think, yes, if you know you need to go get like recharged at home, right? And you only have a little bit of social capital to give, then yes, you monitor and have your own boundaries. But when you're ready to connect and when you're ready to go out in public or to have a conversation with somebody and to make a real connection and make a joke and have some fun too, this is kind of how you could do it. So I thought maybe we could model that.
That'll be fun.
Okay.
I love genuine connection. I'm hard with superficial connection and chit chat. That's like my nightmare.
Okay, so here we go. Here are some examples of questions that I have stolen from online sources, which are just really personality questions, or just, if you are thinking, I don't know, I'm so tired of asking people, how are you? What do you do for a living? How many kids do you have? Like the same boring questions. So if you're trying to get to know somebody, here are some other questions that you can ask. So Carrie Ann.
This is great. Okay.
What is your favorite time of the day?
Right now, I mean, sure, this is like changed over time, right? When I was a teenager, my favorite time of day was the time where I could get in my bed and like just lay there and either go to sleep or like take a nap. And now it's the same, but that time of day has changed. I have found, and I think it's just been this school year. My husband, who works at home still, we have found this like sweet spot of the day where we both get up, we're both getting kids ready at breakfast, get them out the door, and then we both have like 45 minutes of, there's actually a Scottish word for it. It's called herkle-derkle.
Oh, I love it.
And it means staying in bed longer than you know you should when there's other stuff you have to be doing. Oh, I'm going to go herkle-derkle for a while. Herkle-derkle, is that what they would say?
Very cool.
And so we both just get on our phones, and it's that time of day to like, okay, all that rush is done. And okay, now I can read like texts that have come in, or now I can check emails because I'm waiting for this email, or I'm checking Twitter, or checking even the news. Like, so it's just this nice time of day to like, just kind of, and then I'm ready. And then I feel ready to get up and like, and maybe it's a time too to like organize my thoughts. So right now it is early mid-morning is a great time of day to collect my thoughts, get ready.
I love it. What is the best compliment that you've ever received?
I think one that's like flattering, or that is when someone says, and I hope this is not like too braggy sounding, but when someone says like, what can't you do? Or like, you can do anything. And that always makes me feel good because I try. I'm not like, I don't seek success or like I need compliments, but I recognize that is something about me that I'm not afraid to try. Like, why not? Kind of thing. Like, okay, let's try.
I confirm that. I see that.
I can see that in you. And it's just nice when someone recognizes that, because I feel like it means they can count on me. Like, you're dependable. You can. I know you can do that.
Isn't this a better way to get to know somebody? I mean, because you've revealed a lot about what you enjoy as well and what you value by asking like a secondary question. I really like learning that about you. Okay, so this is this is more difficult to answer, but just be as honest as you want to be. What is your biggest weakness?
There are many. I'm trying to judge which one is the largest of those. I think like one I don't like about myself is I'm not motivated to like exercise. That's not something that like drives me. I mean, I have friends that like it energizes them. It's good for their mental health. Like, they have to do something or else they're just kind of miserable. And it's just not me. And it probably should. Like, I'm sure there's benefits. I just cannot make myself enjoy it. I cannot make myself. I like to go out and do fun things. Like, I love to like roller skate. I love to swim. I love to, go for walks or like do an activity. But for the life of me, I can't go to a class, like a fitness class. I can't go walk just to walk. Like, I can think of so many things that I could, whatever be doing. Running, no, there's no way. Tried it. You know what I mean? So like, I do kind of, that's something I do kind of feel bad about, but not that bad.
Then what's your biggest strength?
It's a strength and a weakness.
Okay.
Is just being decisive and going for it. And sometimes that means that like it could be, I have an idea, like I'm going to have a major career change, go online, start looking up classes. Like, how do I become a realtor? How do I like do this? And then there's my husband that puts on the brakes and he's like, have you thought about this? And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about it right now. And he means, have you been thinking about this for weeks and months and whatever? And I'm like, no, I want to do this. So I'm going to do it now. And that is really good in a lot of ways. Like, I can be really energized about a project. Someone can say, will you do this? And I'm like, I'm on it. But then again, like maybe that means that could also be a weakness where it's like, really, have you thought this through? The money that it's going to take, the time it's going to take. And then once you get certified for that, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, I just get excited and go. So I see that as both strength and a weakness.
Aren't they like they're all the same? They're so closely
It's all a double-edged sword.
What song can you play on repeat all the time? Or are you playing on repeat right now?
Oh my gosh, there's lots.
Yeah.
I have a favorite. I'm the type of person that, like, when I was in 6th grade, I think I had an entire cassette tape, front and back, of Stand By Me. Of the song Stand By Me.
Darling.
Oh, that song just broke my heart. And I was like in love with the movie, in love with every single boy in that movie. And I just,
heartbreaking.
And and I would just put that in my, boom box, and it had automatic turnover. And I could listen to that song for hours. So I'm a person that can listen to a song over and over and over. So like right now, some of the songs that are on that repeat. Japan House, I Saw You in a Dream. I love that song. The Rolling Stones, She's Like a Rainbow.
Oh.
That's my daughter's song. And so I feel that song. I feel that's my, Charlotte. Even songs, like even our morning playlist I sometimes play for my kids has like BTS Dynamite on it and stuff. So sometimes I just love a really poppy, fun to sing, get everyone dancing kind of song. I can listen to those songs over and over and over. So
I love it because it kind of tells you what stage of life you're in, right? Like, or your state of mind,
or my state of mind.
And
music does help me like boost state of mind, like especially like energize, or like if I want to get deep into those feels, like,
100%,
like listening to Stand By Me over and over and over. Yeah, like feeds that emotion and it helps it move along.
I do feel. If you want to know how someone is feeling without coming out and asking them, like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Just ask them what music they're listening to lately.
Or what was the last song you listened to?
What are you listening to now?
What are you listening to these days?
In fact, our mutual friend, Casey, for whatever reason, has access to my Spotify list.
As she should. She is a genius at the playlist.
She will observe my listening and then call me when she's alarmed.
That is like a therapist, like being able to monitor.
She'll text me and she'll say, "I noticed that you've been listening to this playlist.
Been noticing you're listening to Ghost.
How you doing?
Indigo Girls, all over and over.
You need help."
That's my sad song. If I'm listening to that one over and over, it's like, Carrie, let's talk.
Yeah,
let's sit down.
Let's change the soundtrack.
Yeah.
What is something, because you're such an open book, what is something that people don't know about you that you kind of wish they did?
I don't know.
Tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. No, this is a question, I think, to really get to know somebody, not for what the secret is or the lesser known skill or whatever, but it's really, I think, hopefully reveals of something that you're thinking about that you want to present to the world that you're not, right? So
yeah, like
something that people don't know that you want to call attention to. Here's your chance.
That I'm constantly, even desperately seeking for people to go sing karaoke with me.
See, that's a great answer.
And like that's a hard one because people have a perception of what karaoke is. For me, it is 100% therapy.
Yeah.
And fun and let loose but for a lot of people it's about, performance and I don't sing, I feel awkward
and
or whatever
and judgment
or
whatever.
Yeah, and no, it's not like that at all. But so because it's like that for me, I have a hard time getting people to go with me because they just don't know how good of therapy it is yet. And it's the cheapest therapy around.
That is not how I thought you were going to answer that question. What a great response and honest.
Love it.
This is how you get to know people. I like this. You're listening to The Lisa Show. We'll be right back. Welcome to The Lisa Show. What is one vice that you have that you're not going to give up?
TV and movies.
Yeah.
Like I'm I can't be highbrow and be like, I don't watch TV.
Right.
Like I love TV. And not, I mean, there are some like network shows that I love and stuff, but I know this has been like oversaid. We're living in a golden age of kind of like really good TV that's made by streaming services, and there's money behind it. There's production behind it. There's story. I'm not ashamed. And even last week or the week before, I got really sick. I had like a flu.
Ooh.
And I binged the show Bling Empire on Netflix, and it was kind of based on Crazy Rich Asians, that book and movie. And so it's kind of, housewives of whatever given city, but it's this group of like cultivated, like made group of Asian friends in Los Angeles, and they're from different Asian countries, but like they all share certain traditions or holidays, and that's kind of what has brought them together as friends. And also they're all filthy rich, and some of them are, you love to hate some of them, and you're like, I love that person. Someone's a gossip. Someone is like, there's one on there that I want to be her when I'm older. I want to be the dowager who doles out advice and corrections and fancy gifts. Yeah. Oh, it's fun. Guilty indulgence. So yeah, like that's never gonna give it up. But yeah, that's an embarrassing one to kind of admit that I love. I love all movies and TV from highbrow down to low trash.
There's a place for everything.
Yep.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. TV's never let me down.
Oh, no.
My darkest moments.
I was raised by TV, so. And I turned out great, right?
Right. Come on. What can't you do?
That's right.
What is the biggest learning experience that you've ever had in your life?
Oh, there have been many, and some of them have been like
you have to choose the biggest.
Work related. Well, I'll tell you one that surprised me, and this one's hard to admit. This is a failure. This is one of my first big failures where I had to pick myself up and move on from. And it was something that happened at work when I was fortunate enough, fresh out of school. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design. So I was a working interior designer, working in commercial design, doing retail, which is my love. Mm-hmm. It was basically a dream job. And, but the company I was working for was new and young. Like the people that ran it were also young, like in their 30s, even at that point. So, they were a growing company, and I was loving it, and I did this project for them. I had doubts about the project that, as a young woman, I felt insecure about sharing with the older people that were making decisions. And so I really dropped the ball on part of the project that really impacted the budget of it. Like it's just something that I kind of felt, well, that's not really part of my job. And ultimately, like the lesson I got out of it was you take responsibility for the things that fail. And truly, it came down to me. I was the person that should have been responsible for that. Ended up one afternoon on the phone with the chairman of the company, chairman of the board. Yeah. And he was an older man, very experienced in business, and was sobbing on the phone with him of talking through this project. Like, him asking me, and to his credit, like he did it so kindly. He could not have been a kinder kind of mentor through this. But I had to own that huge mistake. I had to fix it. Like I had to kind of like help this resolve. And I had to stay at the company. You know what I mean? Like it was,
show up the next day.
Right. Like it wasn't a huge humiliation or something. Like the whole company wasn't like blaming me for something, but it was hard. Like that was a hard thing. But what I learned about myself, and I was happy, I made it through. I wasn't angry. I wasn't trying to deflect. Like I learned a lot about myself, like what I could handle when I failed, and at least came through it feeling like, okay, I did it with like dignity, except for the sobbing on the phone. But like I had, dignity, I kept integrity, and time passed and I learned, you know what I mean? But like that was my big, hard, like failure, 100%. Like, it was tough to get through, but still it's the first thing that comes to mind when someone asks something like that.
It's so interesting how much you reveal about yourself when you answer these questions.
Really?
Like there are, I can tell that hard work is important to you and personal responsibility is important to you, and that you take work seriously and your art seriously. And those are byproducts of answering a question that you get to that's so open-ended, really.
Well, and to your credit, doing this exercise together, you're a good listener.
Oh,
you're
thanks.
a good listener. And so you're asking these questions and you're listening to them because you want to know. And
yeah, I really want to know. That's the only thing I'm motivated by. And I think when people want to listen to what I have to say, I'm always a little bit surprised, only because I think in my mind, I want to gather information from other people, right? Like I'm just so curious about who they are, and I want to feel connected to them. And I think that it's the art of conversation or the art of getting to know someone is an art form that is like a give and a take.
You are blessed with curiosity, though, and that's like a good trait. And if you don't feel like you have curiosity and you want to do things like this, you kind of have to cultivate it, because you can ask these questions but not be really listening to the answer. Like I could have answered that, and someone wouldn't have like gotten that out of it.
I don't think that there's anything more insulting when someone asks you a deep question, like, how's your grief? How are your kids doing, after this or whatever? And then you start to answer honestly, and because that's the social contract, right?
Right.
And you can tell that they're not listening.
Yes.
Or they interrupt you, or they walk away, or whatever, because people get distracted or whatever. Like that to me is physically painful.
I agree. And sometimes that happens like in social situations where there's lots of people. I think that's why I'm a dinner party person, not like a party person, because you want to have, not that you want like a captive audience, but like it's a lot easier to get to know someone when you're sitting rather than like mingling and like getting interrupted and people come in and you're like, oh, hi. And you don't get the chance then for
you can be interrupted, but we all know what it feels like to be talking to somebody in a big setting or a small setting.
Oh, yeah.
And
Even
they're
your family.
looking over you.
Yeah.
Looking for somebody better to talk to. And you're just like, okay, well, never mind.
Well, and that's a good cue, like for me, when I like, no, stay here. I want to talk. I'm not done with you.
Yeah.
But like, it's not the appropriate time at a party. Or like at save that interaction, be patient. I have to pull back and be like, keep it light.
I was just talking to somebody and they were trying to explain who this person was. And they were saying sometimes they are a little bit socially awkward. They're not really aware, like kind of a heads up. And I thought to myself, that's a really interesting observation, that I wonder if that person is obviously not aware. So where does that come from? Is that a taught skill? Is that just something that's innate, that you are aware of a social surrounding and what's appropriate to talk about in public and what's not? Like you're saying, when is it okay to ask personal questions and to really, get deep and connected? And I think that some people can feel it when it's appropriate, and when we're going to go down that road, and some people can't. And I'm certainly trying to get better at knowing that. I think, again, it's an art form.
Yes, yeah. And kind of a good rule of thumb is if you're standing and holding your drinks or food, keep, your time is shorter than if you're sitting. You're sitting, eating and drinking, or but I can be very socially awkward, but I'm also self-aware. There are people that are not self-aware. And those, like, if that was my kid, I would pull them aside. And I mean, I have, with my daughter, and like, you can't shut people down by just saying, I don't want to do that, and move on.
Right.
Like, you talk to them about stuff like that. But it's harder as an adult. And we all have friends where it's not my job, and it's not like my stewardship. It's not my right to like pull them aside and be like, did you know you're socially awkward?
Yeah, that's just
Can
not
I help you with your skills? Like, no, you can't. Other than like just being a good friend and guiding, complimenting when you can, like, support the good behavior. Yeah, but we all have people we dread talking to.
Well, and then we are just coming out of COVID and different situations where people are becoming more themselves, is how I like to say it. Like, if you are extroverted now, you are super extroverted, awkwardly so. If you were introverted before, you are awkwardly introverted. We're all just like, how do we talk to people and not scare them away? And so we've got that kind of learning curve, plus different family values and family, like, background of what you talked about. Like, we talked about everything at my dinner table. Mm-hmm. I found out in college, not everybody grew up in a family where you just brought up anything.
Right.
And then being able to negotiate that can be awkward and can bump into each other. And I really want people to feel comfortable around me. And so I think I don't know where anybody else is coming from, right? But if I can listen and just give them the benefit of the doubt and really prove to them, this is a safe place. Like, I'm not going to make fun of you unless that you like being made fun of, because my siblings and I, we like to teach each other.
Right.
That's our love language. But that I'm going to listen and give you that respect. Right. And I am often surprised when people are just not interested in just listening to other people's points of view, because that's where real connection is and vulnerability. It's not that you just find the people that you agree with and agree with everything that you say. It's really taking the time to explain why you feel the way you do.
And even as we make friends, because I've noticed this, as you make friends, you gravitate towards the people that think the same as you or that have the same interests. And I find that like politically or religiously, I'm not having the opportunities that maybe I used to have when I was like going to school, and like I was exposed to kind of a wider variety of people, or in different places that I've lived. Like, I've noticed that, and I've thought, like, how can I expand that? And a couple of things that have been delightful, like in my town, there have been things like living room discussions, which are public forums that's actually run and trained by a company that teaches you how to have like a public dialogue. And you can go, and I've gone on multiple topics, and usually they're like hot topics, like politics, like religion, like social ideas that are kind of, in the news and people are talking about. And they give people a safe, open place to talk about that. And I have met people that had opposing views. And because we were all there in agreement to like be civil and to be curious and to be whatever, there are great opportunities out there. They may not come naturally in like friendships, but I have been delightfully surprised to find that they are out there. And like, it's out of my comfort zone, but isn't that so good for me? Like, don't we all need a little step outside of the circle? So seek it out. Seek those things out if you find they're not naturally in your neighborhood or with the circle of moms or coworkers that So,
accidental friendships are great.
Yeah.
They really are. And it's, our kids are the same age, or our kids like each other, or we live in the same neighborhood, or it's very convenient.
Those are my friends these days, right?
And I absolutely agree with that. And I think it's so wonderful. I do also think that stretching yourself, though, and having friends and going out of your way to have friends who are different from you and make a little bit more of an effort also has value.
Absolutely. In fact, I made a friend recently in the last couple of years it was our sons that brought us together. They're like best friends. And like at first impression, I did not think that I would have anything in common. We did not click. And in fact, I like kind of avoided this person. And now she's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Because
it has value.
It does have value, and like we got to know each other.
Yeah, until you get to know each other.
We didn't until we had a chance to sit and talk. And she is a great listener. She asks amazing questions. Like, she wants to know about people, and that's naturally, how I like tell me everything. So it's been a fun friendship, and I'm grateful. I love her.
I love when I feel like I can be myself.
Yes.
And maybe sometimes in social situations when I was younger, I would have held my tongue or not, waited to be able to read the room before I really expressed what I thought. And the older I get, the less I wait. And I don't mean to dominate the conversation or anything or derail or try to say something provocative just for the sake of it, but just to say what I really think and then sit back and listen to what other people really think. And for whatever reason, that has just helped me to make friends quicker because there's less of that, I thought you were this way, or we only knew each other in a formal setting or whatever. It's just thought, this is let's get into it. Let's treat each other with kindness and respect and also with what we really think and not layer it.
You don't have to be like intense best friends.
No, and that's another part of the conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But like you can go a little deeper than just the surface. And I do have like a surface personality that I kind of don't love.
What do you mean?
Like
I would never categorize you like that.
Yeah, no, there's a there's a party face, right? And I'm talking like I go to tons of parties. I do not.
It's not the day and age we live in.
No, I've been to a party or two.
I hope.
Yeah, no, yeah.
In our perfect world, there would be karaoke parties every weekend, but we don't live in that world yet.
Not yet.
We have
not
to create
yet.
it.
Yes, that's my utopia. Like I have a personality that sometimes I just don't love. It's a little too much when really I want to be sitting down and doing this, what we're doing. Let's just talk about this. What do you think about this? Did you see that? What did you think? Instead of I don't know.
Yeah, diving a little bit deeper into those questions of not only what do you think, but who are you and why? How have you come to learn this? What, sort of price have you paid to
get there? What you were talking about comes with confidence, right? Where you can talk in a group and be really authentic and ask a question or understand what people think. That's a maturity too, and a confidence that I didn't have in my 20s and maybe not even in my 30s.
Well, and I've also noticed that at times in my life, and this was much more, this is something that everyone struggles with their whole life, but that kind of insecurity and sort of rating where you are in life and how well you're doing to your peers, right? And I'm getting a lot better at that than I was. But if you're talking to someone and you're sort of saying, what is your life like? Or what does it look like right now? And other people are doing awesome in areas that you're not doing awesome or vice versa, that can create a lot of good night. I'm going home. I don't want to talk like this anymore. But when you do feel confident in your own choices and you're not threatened by someone who lives completely differently than you or is quote unquote more successful. It just doesn't matter. Stuff like that just doesn't matter.
Don't compare apples to oranges.
But it's hard
terms of
sometimes.
That. It is.
And I think that it does keep people, it has it in my life at certain points, not currently, but from connecting with people because you're just feeling too fragile.
Yeah. Or I don't really have anything to add right now. And I'm in that stage a little bit right now, not working. And I've worked most of my life.
Is that something that you feel insecure about? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It makes me a little I'm not that interesting, what, or even when people ask me, what do I do? You know what I mean?
I know it's such a hard question.
I don't know because I'm not doing it right now.
Yeah.
I'm not being an interior designer right now. I'm not being a teacher right now. So
when we talk about friendships and sort of deepening it, I think that's what we crave when we say, hey, we want to go out or I need to call a friend or do something fun. It's not necessarily the activity, but it's just feeling like you can connect or bond with someone. What is your go-to question when you really want to know something about someone?
I ask about their family. Usually, not always, but people are pretty comfortable kind of talking about their family or they, like to talk about their family. And I think it's really telling what number you are in the family and that kind of sparks a conversation.
The sibling birth order.
Yeah, are you first? Are you middle? Are you last? And then,
Are you only? Are you?
Yeah. And how was that? Were you the little mama or were you the, the follower? You just find out a lot about people, about their place in the family and what they like to do.
Oh, that's a really good one.
And you can immediately find out family is a touchy subject. Kind of maybe move on. And then in that case, I would talk usually about some kind of, not necessarily college life, but as a young person, what were you doing? if you're not talking about, like, this is beyond jobs, like, what do you do? Where do you live?
yeah.
Like, blah, blah, blah. I also love to know where people lived. Love to know where people lived. I don't know why, for me, that tells me a lot about a person, but I think it says a lot about me, maybe. That's why.
Sure.
So,
Because you're also, revealing information about yourself by the questions that you ask.
Oh, sure.
100%.
Sure. Now I'm thinking about that. Like, what am I asking?
Because especially when when my husband was diagnosed with a terminal disease and I felt quite fragile, or right after he died. I mean, really, honestly, for the last 7 years, when people ask me, how are you, in different ways? How are you? Oh, that's a dumb question. Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, how are you has become the hardest question for people to ask and for me to answer. I just avoid it and I appreciate it when people ask me, how are you today? Or how are you feeling, today? Mm-hmm. At like a throwaway question, or what does your life look like now? And I like asking people that question.
It's made you more sensitive to that, sure.
Because I feel like then it's so open, and it gives the power to the person, no matter how, like, if you're worried that they're feeling tender, or you don't know if it's good or bad, but you really do want to know. You just don't want to be socially, like, inappropriate or awkward or make them cry or whatever. I mean, unless you're a good friend, you can ask whatever, right?
Right.
But saying, what does your life look like right now? The way that I answer that will reveal what I'm thinking about, what's on my mind,
and you asked
what
me
I
that
value.
This morning.
I like that.
We greeted, and you asked me, what does your life look like right now?
Well, because we assume so much. I think, when I was a stay-at-home mom, when people ask you, like, what do you do? It causes you sort of anxiety, which it shouldn't, because you do everything, right?
Right.
But if you ask...
running the world right now.
or if your job is changing and you're stressed about that, or you're stressed about things at home, or something exciting and fun is happening, and it lets you highlight what you want to do. What does your life look like now?
And this is a uniquely American social phenomenon where we say, how are you? And what we mean is howdy. Not like...
Or in England, they would be like, you all right?
Exactly. Like, that's the most confusing
and I was like, I don't know. Yeah, sure.
greeting to Americans. Like, all right? And you're like, all right, what? What? But yeah, it's our version of saying, well, what's up, very lightly. But in other cultures, it's, if you ask, how are you? You are going to get exactly how they are. And yeah, so there's many variations of that for us.
Well,
how are you?
I know. How are you doing? How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how that is interpreted is up to you.
And I like how you rephrase it. Like, if you want to know something else, ask something else.
Yeah. And it's okay.
Instead of just saying, how are you?
And also, on the other end of it, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
I guess not. I will always answer.
And that's why we had you on the Lisa Show. Thank you so much for being really open and honest. It's my hope that when everyone should know who you are. You're so lovely, and you're so, accomplished and friendly, and you've made my life better.
That's how I kind friend.
My dream is that all of my friends are friends. And so everyone is kind of connected. And for whatever reason, that's been in my heart since I was a little girl, right?
It's a gift of yours. You bring friends
love
together.
That. It brings me so much joy. And I think the art of conversation and the art of asking questions can help people find what they really are searching for, which is connection and being seen and felt. And it's something that I want to talk more about.
It's been fun to talk this way.
Thank you for listening to The Lisa Show. We'll be right back. Welcome to The Lisa Show.
You have to teach your kids 1 million things. And if I start making a list of all the things, it is very overwhelming. And perhaps it's because as my kids get older and I have teenagers and then now young adults, then as they leave the home, I think, oh, wait, did I tell them that? Did I teach them this? Now, one aspect that I feel is more important than I would have thought, say 10, 20 years ago, is that element of socialization for your kids. Having them meet new people, feel confident going into a new situation.
Carry
socially.
a conversation.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And because it's not just the verbal things that you teach them, but it's the nonverbal cues. Like when I say, oh, when someone's talking, if you're like looking around, they might interpret that as rude or that you don't care.
Yep.
Oh, that's not what I mean. Well, those kinds of little lessons add up, and they're really hard to really not only list, but then implement, right, in your everyday sort of parenting moments. So here to help us teach kids how to socialize is friend of the show, Carrie Ann Rhodes. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good. I'm glad you're here.
I am glad you're
I hear
here.
there's a bit of snow outside.
Well, and I'm glad that we're able to have eye-to-eye conversation this morning.
I'm looking into your eyes and saying good morning,
Well,
Richie.
good morning.
All right, you guys.
Look, I got something down. I got it right. I put my phone away. Face to
And
face.
we're talking face to face like humans.
I think one of a hard aspect of parenting is knowing when to be patient, like, oh, they'll learn, they'll
Right.
get it eventually, and when to insist, no, you need to learn this now, whether it's tying your shoes or socializing, and that's a huge spectrum. Where do you start?
Well, this is a tough one. This is one of those things that a lot of parents don't explicitly teach kids. Some parents do, and it depends on a culture. I was taught years ago by a friend of the show, Casey Faulkner, a good friend of mine. When she had young kids and I had no kids, I remember her explicitly teaching her kids, like when we came over, we were neighbors, casual friends, but she had an expectation that her kids, the ones that were old enough at least, would acknowledge that we had entered their home.
Hello.
Right. Make eye contact and say hello. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like has anyone ever told me that was like the expectation? And her kids, when they were little, were on the shy side. And so it was a way that she was teaching them that this is appropriate, like social behavior in her home. It was just setting an expectation. She wasn't forcing them. She wasn't, it wasn't like stressful, but she was just reminding them, okay, say hello. And it impressed me then. And so I thought of all the ways that we explicitly teach our young children to socialize, like sharing, getting along, taking turns, like all.
Sure,
I think
that
of
compromise.
preschool shows that teach kids all of those skills. But are there any like what shows do kids watch these days? I don't know. My kids watch a lot of Daniel
don't
Tiger.
ask me.
Okay,
We talk
Daniel
a lot.
Tiger.
We
Daniel
watch a
Tiger
lot of
taught me how to
TV.
parent, and teaches all sorts of good things, all these little parenting tips and whatever. But do they teach things like say hello, like verbally say hello?
Now that you mention
look in
it,
your eyes. And
I can't think of a preschool show or I'm sure there are some that do, but you're right. This isn't something that is acknowledged a lot.
Right. It's kind of it's a modeled behavior. It's more modeled, I think, than it is kind of an explicit lesson. And I wasn't a shy kid. I was probably more on the obnoxious side of the spectrum. But that didn't mean that I
Wait,
couldn't.
what?
I know, it's shocking.
Hold on. You were
gotta
that
work
may
through
be a
this.
thing for a different time.
It doesn't mean that if you're not shy that you still can't learn some appropriate social behavior. Like I think my problem was treating every adult like a jungle gym. Like pick me up,
yeah.
swing me around, that. So can you see that there's a need to maybe kind of teach good social behavior? So as I've mentioned before, both of my sister-in-laws are native to other countries. I have one sister-in-law from France and one sister-in-law from Japan. And both of their cultures have very specific norms for appropriate hellos and goodbyes. And because these families both live in the United States, it's different. What they expect from their kids socially is different from what they expect when they are in their native countries. And so I've been in their native countries with them and kind of observed, and it's very interesting just what is natural and what you do.
Oh.
And even when recently I went to France and visited my sister-in-law's family, the kissing on the cheeks 3 times. I mean that is, if you don't do that, it's considered rude, even if you don't know these people at all. Or if as you walk into a shop, if you don't say hello to the shopkeeper, it is considered very rude. And that's just not something we do in the States, but that's a small socialization that I didn't learn in French class even.
Sure.
So, these things are kind of small details, but they can have a big impact on how you're perceived and kind of how you're treated. So we want our kids to kind of start off on the best foot when they're starting in school, etc. So there's a big movement right now in the United States about not forcing your children to hug or kiss adults.
Right. Yeah. Don't force them. To have any physical contact with an adult.
Right. That's not
without consent.
Without consent. Right. And I know that's kind of a big buzzword right now, the word consent in our culture, American culture right now. But it's worth talking about because this is a personal family decision. But by teaching a child that they are not forced to hug and kiss, even grandma and grandpa or, aunts and uncles, that kind of thing, we're teaching them they have autonomy over their own body and that no one can force them to have physical contact if they don't want it or they don't initiate it. Because if we're, there's the idea that if we're forcing to have intimate contact with this adult, they have a hard time discerning, well, then the stranger adult. Yeah. Is it appropriate then for them to have that kind of contact? So it's worth talking about whoever you're raising. Are you raising your children with a partner? Talking with them about, well, what do you think about this? What do you think is appropriate? My kids, I'm a hugger, and so my kids
me too.
Have kind of become huggers. And I know that my parents appreciate it when they get hugs for my kids. They've actually said that, how much it means to them to have a hug from a grandchild so they feel connected and whatnot. But I try really hard, and I've caught myself wanting to say, go say goodbye, go give a hug to someone without... And kind of feeling like, oh, do they want to do this in the moment or do they not?
It's one thing to remind them, like, hey, now would be the appropriate time because they're leaving to go say goodbye. And that's the other thing of saying, this is exactly how you have to do it.
We are not leaving until you hug Grandma. Yeah.
And I've noticed sometimes they have chosen to hug like a family friend who I wouldn't have said, go give them a hug.
Yeah, but
and I've kind of okay, if they're wanting to, that's that's fine. But there's also a lot of backlash to this as well, and there's going to be two sides to every story. So that's why I say discuss it as a family. Talk about it with your kids.
Well, I think this is the reason why I really like having this conversation with you, because you're saying, I'm not telling you what to do and what that kind of socialization is, but have the conversation.
Right.
Like talk about it to your kids. And I think that from young kids to older kids and adolescents, we stop having those conversations. We just assume they know.
And it's going to be a totally different conversation. It's going to be the same topic, but treated in a different style when my kids become teenagers. And their bodies are changing, and they may suddenly feel shy and awkward and dumb, like hugging grandma and grandpa. I mean, I don't know, but it's...
That's been my experience.
You don't have this conversation once and leave it.
And then now they're like, oh, bye. I'll be like, come on, well, at least say goodbye. Yeah. I don't know.
Look at them in the eyes and
give them 2 syllables, not just one.
We're talking with friend of the show, Carrie Ann Rhodes, about the socialization of our kids. Things like saying hello when someone comes into the room. By the way, we haven't taught you this yet, but we insist that when anyone comes here into the studio, that they say bonjour and look at us in the eyes.
This.
Well, I know. And we've considered it very rude, but now that we've had this conversation, we hope that you'll...
I know. The expectation now I can not disappoint.
Part of socialization is also like making friends, and I think that comes naturally to a lot of kids, but not to some.
Well, and I have noticed the difference between my 2 children's personalities as they've entered preschool and kindergarten, and now we're getting into older grades, that kids naturally make friends. Generally, like they play with other kids in the class, even if it's kind of parallel play, where they're not like talking to each other and doing imaginary things with each other, but they're playing together. That is part of socialization, even if it's not they're not using each other's names and looking into each other's eyes. But a parent can help kids take that next step. And I realized this recently as my daughter says, there was a new kid in class today. And I'm like, oh, really? What's his name? I don't know. But they played. Like they had played that day. Yeah. I don't know. Or she'll come home and say, I made a new friend today. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so great. What's your friend's name? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of made me wonder as a parent, like, okay, there are some skills, like very gently as a mother that I can help them. So one of them is remembering names. And you can go online and find, millions and millions and millions of self-help and advice and whatever, teaching you how to better socialize. And the classic tome, right, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. And it's written by Dale Carnegie in like 1932. This is an old book. It's considered kind of trite and whatever, but I return to it again and again and again because the principles are so easy. If someone had given me that book as a teenager, it would have vastly improved my ability to socialize, carry on a conversation, like you said, Richie, whatever. And so there are 6 points from that book in a chapter called 6 Ways to Make People Like You. And this is a very simple way to kind of help small children to teenagers teach them explicitly good socialization practices. So one of them is be genuinely interested in other people. And some of these are kind of like vague topics for a small child, but something like smile, that's number 2. That's not a hard thing to teach a kid, that you can make a friend easily if you just smile at them. Even if you say you don't have to talk, if you're too shy to talk to this person, you can smile at them.
A lot of great, really great information about helping us socialize our kids, helping them to just have those basic communication skills, whether it be remembering a name or looking someone in the eye, like I'm doing right now with Carrie Ann Rhodes. Thanks for being with us.
I feel seen. Thanks for having me.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio. This week's show was produced by me, Lisa Valentine Clark, and McKay Menden, with music and sound design by Katie Johnson and Sam Clausen. Special thanks to Casey Faulkner. You can find more from her at caseyfaulkner.com. If you like the show, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so we can reach new listeners like you and we can add to the conversation. Next week on the show,
there are a lot of viewpoints that I was introduced to through music. For me, listening to music is like reading. So you get to see a point of view that you wouldn't otherwise get. And I care a lot about what the authors intend. Not everyone does, but I do. And REM, while my mom hated them because they were so obnoxious,
really?
I loved them because they taught me about activism.
That's next week on The Lisa Show.